Most people have seen the famous investing chart. It starts very small, almost boring, then slowly curves upward before exploding into a huge mountain of wealth. Finance channels love showing it because the message feels magical. Start early, stay consistent, and somehow your small savings eventually grow into life-changing wealth over time. Every time you see that graph, the lesson sounds the same. Just begin investing, keep adding money, be patient, let compound growth do the work. The curve starts flat, then suddenly shoots upward like a rocket. It makes wealth building look almost automatic, as if time alone quietly turns ordinary people into millionaires. But there is an obvious question almost nobody asks. If compound growth is so powerful, why do millions of people who invest for years still feel financially stuck? Many started early, many stayed consistent, yet their accounts never exploded into mountains of wealth. Something important about that famous chart is rarely explained. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. Compound growth does not feel powerful at very small amounts. In fact, for a long time, it barely feels like growth at all. The curve everyone shows only becomes exciting after a certain point. Before that point, progress looks slow, flat, and sometimes painfully invisible. Think about the classic example people love to share. A penny doubled every day for 30 days becomes more than $5 million. The story sounds incredible and proves the magic of compounding, but hidden inside that example is an unrealistic assumption that quietly makes the math look far more exciting than real life. In the real world, investments rarely double overnight. Broad stock market returns historically average around 7 to 10% per year. After inflation, that may be closer to 6 or 7%. That means your money grows slowly, little by little, not in dramatic leaps that instantly change your financial life. Now imagine you invest $100 and earn 8% in a good year. Your profit is $8. $8 will not transform your life. It might not even cover lunch. Yet people are constantly told that starting with any amount will unleash the power of compounding immediately. This advice is well-intentioned, but it hides an important truth. Compounding only becomes exciting after your investment base becomes large enough. Before that moment, most of your progress comes from your own contributions, not from the market. You are doing almost all the work while your investments quietly grow in the background. Imagine two different investors. The first person has saved $5,000. At 8% growth, that money produces $400 in a year. That return might feel nice, but it will not dramatically change their financial situation or accelerate their wealth in a noticeable way. Now imagine you invest $100,000 and earn 8% in a good year. Your profit is $8,000. Suddenly, the growth feels real. That $8,000 can begin producing more growth the following year. The snowball finally starts gathering real snow. This is why legendary investor Charlie Munger once said the first $100,000 is the hardest. Many people think he meant it emotionally, but he was also speaking mathematically. Below that level, progress mostly depends on how much you save from your income rather than how fast your investments grow. When your investments are small, the market acts like a supporting character in your financial story. Your salary, your savings rate, and your discipline are the real drivers. But once your investments grow large enough, the roles begin to change. Your money slowly starts doing some of the work for you. At that stage, something interesting happens. Some days, the market moves more money in your account than you earn from a full day of work. Suddenly, the idea of compound growth stops feeling theoretical. You can actually see it happening in your life, quietly pushing your wealth forward. But here's the difficult reality. Many people spend years investing and never reach that stage, not because they're careless with money, not because they lack discipline. Often, the reason is simply scale. Their investment base never grows large enough for compound growth to become powerful and visible. Consider retirement statistics in many developed countries. Surveys often show that households approaching retirement hold far less savings than people expect. Some families finally cross six-figure savings levels only near the end of their working careers. By then, they soon begin withdrawing money instead of letting it compound longer. That means they spent decades investing on the slowest, flattest part of the growth curve. By the time compounding could begin accelerating wealth meaningfully, retirement arrives and withdrawals begin. The snowball finally starts rolling faster, just as they're forced to slow it down. This is where the conversation about money needs more honesty. Traditional advice often focuses heavily on small spending habits: skip coffee, cancel subscriptions, spend less on small pleasures. Those ideas can help, but they assume something important, that careful budgeting alone can close a very large financial gap. For some people, frugality truly works, but for many households, the challenge is not excessive spending, it's limited income combined with rising living costs. Rent, transportation, food, healthcare, and education consume most of their earnings before serious investing can even begin. Imagine someone earning $35,000 a year while paying $1,200 monthly for rent. Even with careful budgeting, very little money remains for investing. Cutting small luxuries can't magically create thousands of dollars for investment each year. The math just leaves no much room. This is why advice like just invest early can feel frustrating for many people. It skips the hardest step in the entire journey. Before compounding becomes powerful, you must first build a meaningful base. That stage requires discipline, patience, and often higher income rather than perfect budgeting. Think of building wealth like climbing a mountain. The compound interest charts show the beautiful view from the top. What they rarely show is the steep cliff you must climb first. Reaching the first major savings milestone can feel slow, exhausting, and sometimes discouraging. There's also a psychological challenge that many people underestimate. Imagine investing $200 every month for 2 years. After 24 months, your account might show around $5,000, but almost all of that money came from your deposits, not from investment growth. Your gains might only be a few $100s. When you see that number, it can feel disappointing. Social media is full of stories about investors earning thousands through compounding, yet your account barely moved. It's easy to think you made a mistake or chose the wrong strategy, but the truth is much simpler. Nothing is wrong with your investments. Nothing is wrong with your discipline. The numbers just haven't reached the level where compounding becomes noticeable. The math is still working quietly behind the scenes, even if it feels unimpressive today. This early stage is where many people quit. They stop investing because progress looks too slow, or they constantly change strategies hoping to find faster results. Unfortunately, frequent changes usually make the situation worse by interrupting the slow process that eventually leads to meaningful growth. Understanding this reality can actually be empowering. Instead of expecting early investments to explode quickly, you begin seeing the process more clearly. The goal during the early years is not massive growth. The goal is building the foundation that will eventually allow compound growth to accelerate. So, how do you cross that difficult early stage faster? There are several practical strategies that make a real difference. The first one might surprise you because it has less to do with saving and more to do with earning. Income growth is one of the most powerful tools for reaching the compounding threshold. When your investment base is small, every extra dollar you earn and invest has a huge impact. A raise, a better job, or a profitable side project can accelerate your financial progress dramatically. This does not mean you must work non-stop or adopt extreme hustle culture. Instead, it means focusing energy where it creates the biggest financial impact. Learning valuable skills, improving your career opportunities, or starting a small business can increase your earning power over time. When income rises, your ability to invest grows as well. Investing $500 each month instead of $200 drastically changes how quickly your portfolio grows. The compounding engine begins with contributions, and larger contributions help the engine reach meaningful size faster. The second important strategy is protecting the savings you already have. Early investments are fragile because they are still small. Unexpected emergencies can wipe out years of progress if you must withdraw your investments suddenly. That is why an emergency fund plays such an important role in financial stability. A separate cash reserve protects your investments from sudden shocks like medical bills, job loss, or car repairs. Without that protection, you may repeatedly empty your investment account and start from zero again. Every time your balance returns to zero, the compounding clock resets. You lose the time advantage that compound growth depends on. Even small setbacks can delay long-term wealth building by years if they repeatedly interrupt the growth process. The third strategy is changing how you measure progress. Many people compare their accounts to the dramatic compound interest charts they see online. Those charts show the final result after decades, not the quiet years at the beginning. Instead of focusing only on growth percentages, track your total net worth. Celebrate the milestones you reach along the way. The first $1,000 matters. The first $5,000 matters. 10,000, 25,000, and 50,000 are all meaningful steps forward. Each milestone represents more than just a number. It represents discipline, consistency, and time invested in your future. Every dollar saved shortens the distance between where you are today and the point where compound growth truly accelerates. Think of the process like building a runway for an airplane. At the beginning, the plane moves slowly along the ground. It feels like nothing exciting is happening, but every meter of runway brings the aircraft closer to the speed required for takeoff. Eventually, the plane lifts into the air. That moment is similar to the stage where compounding becomes powerful. But the takeoff would never happen without the long runway that allowed the aircraft to build speed. In the same way, early savings build the financial runway for your future wealth. The progress may look slow, but it is absolutely necessary. Without that base, compound growth never gets the chance to work at its full potential. Another powerful mindset shift is understanding that time still matters deeply. Even though early compounding feels small, those early years create the timeline that later growth depends on. Starting earlier gives your investments more years to expand once the base becomes larger. This is why consistent investing remains important even when the numbers feel unimpressive. Each contribution plants a seed that can grow later. Skipping years of investing removes seeds that could have become meaningful sources of growth in the future. Many successful investors describe the wealth journey as boring for a long time and then suddenly exciting. The boring phase is where patience and discipline are tested. It is also where most people quietly build the foundation that eventually supports large financial growth. Another helpful idea is focusing on increasing your savings rate over time. As income grows, try to invest a larger percentage instead of allowing lifestyle costs to consume every raise. This habit gradually strengthens the engine driving your financial progress. Lifestyle inflation is one of the biggest hidden enemies of long-term wealth. When income increases but spending rises just as fast, the investment base grows slowly. Avoiding this trap allows your portfolio to expand more quickly over time. It is also helpful to remember that investing is not about perfection. You do not need to choose the perfect stock or perfectly time the market. Consistent investing in diversified funds over many years is often enough to benefit from long-term economic growth. Small improvements in financial habits compound over decades, just like investments do. Learning to budget, increasing income, saving consistently, and avoiding unnecessary debt all strengthen the financial foundation supporting your future wealth. Eventually, something interesting happens. Your portfolio begins producing noticeable gains. A market increase might add several $1,000s to your account. For the first time, the growth feels meaningful rather than symbolic. This moment is when people finally experience the power everyone talks about. The growth begins accelerating because returns start generating their own returns. Compounding shifts from a concept you read about into a force you can actually observe. From that point forward, time becomes one of your greatest allies. The larger your investment base becomes, the harder compound growth works for you. Wealth begins expanding faster without requiring equally large contributions from your income. But remember, that stage only exists because of the quiet years before it. The early sacrifices, the consistent investing, and the patience through slow progress all create the conditions that allow compound growth to eventually flourish. So the real lesson about compounding is not that it works instantly. The real lesson is that it rewards persistence over long periods. Those who stay consistent through the slow early phase are the ones most likely to reach the powerful acceleration stage. Understanding this truth changes how you think about money. Instead of feeling discouraged by slow growth, you begin recognizing it as a normal and necessary stage in the wealth-building journey. When you know the early phase is supposed to be slow, you stop questioning your strategy every few months. You stop chasing shortcuts. Instead, you focus on building your income, protecting your savings, and steadily expanding your investment base. Eventually, the numbers begin to change in noticeable ways. Your investments generate more growth each year. Progress becomes easier to see. The same compound curve that once looked unrealistic slowly becomes part of your financial reality. The most important takeaway is simple. Compounding is real and powerful, but it needs a strong foundation before it can transform your finances. That foundation is built through time, discipline, increasing income, and consistent investing. Once you understand this, the journey becomes clearer. The goal is not chasing instant growth. The goal is building the base that allows growth to happen later. When you stay patient and keep building that base, the mathematics of compounding eventually begins working strongly in your favor.